Hi everybody, it's Andy from Snow Camps Europe, and I'm here with Mr. Simpson from the Ski Instructor Academy in Gabron. And we are, another podcast. And the ski season's about to start. The lifts are going to open on Saturday. Hey!
Right, so they'll be opening they'll have already opened by the time we put this out.
It will. I should have thought about that before I said it. The lifts are going to open on the 9th, but you're probably watching this on the
15th
19th or something, yeah.
If there's anything to do with me, it'll be on the wrong day, because I keep posting on the wrong day and Andy gets all upset. It's because I don't even look. I just publish things and I don't even check. Normally I'm late, but this last once I was early. Constantly early.
What's that? No attention to detail? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, no attention to detail with things that don't matter. So what we're talking about, Andy?
So because the ski season is about to start, we thought we would give you a little bit of info on how to prepare for it, how to get ready, what you might want to be doing, thinking about new purchases, etc. And we were thinking about starting with, we've got to get our ski kit back out and make sure it's all okay for the coming season. So I know, and I'll go first, that I was very, very bad and I didn't store my skis in a sensible way. I didn't wax them at the end of the season and leave the wax on and put them in a nice, cool, dark place.
Isn't that what you do with medication?
Possibly. I actually left them in the roof box of my car. And they're still there. Since the last day I skied.
What you're talking about now?
Yeah.
Because you're going to chuck them into Brundle and have them service them and put them right.
Well,
the bases are completely sunk in.
There's a good chance they may have melted or something. I don't know, but I'm going to have to check. So we're going to talk about getting your skis and your boots and your poles and whatnot out of
storage where your tortoises.
And what you need to have a little look at to then decide what your plan of action is going to be to get your equipment ready for the season. Yeah. And mine is, as Paul just said, take them out of the roof box, throw them into Brundle and hope that they're okay.
Yeah, and get them serviced. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find when people own their own equipment is they really don't look at the whole story. Buying a pair of skis becomes like, getting a dog. You've got to look after it thereafter. And it all sounds great at first, but actually when you buy a pair of skis, you're taking a lot of responsibility for trekking it back and forwards to wherever you go. If you're not going in a car, then you do lug it round to the airport. You always end up having to go to the off-size baggage or whatever it is, oversized baggage area, which drags, again, you've got to take it somewhere else and wait. Then you get it off the other end if it's lucky to arrive. And then when you get there, often any good ski instructors, if he sees it's your own skis, probably going to look at it and want to see, what it is you're on. Because some people don't even know that sometimes it's broken. It's like snapped the tip or something, because sometimes you wouldn't notice actually that it's fractured inside. One of the things I see most of all is, rusty edges.
Yep.
That's the most common thing. And then you can clearly see that the belag, base, the base, speak German, the base has not been serviced for a long time. There's no texture to the base. So a decent pair of skis has a structure put into the base of the ski. And a good service, a place that has one of these top quality machines, can actually put the correct structure in depending on the mark and the brand of the skis, because it can't just be all the same style. So think of a tire. Your tire has a pattern, a structure, and that structure, you should be able to see it. If you turn your ski to the light and tilt it a bit, you'll see it has a pattern, and that pattern is very, very important. If you don't see that pattern, you probably never had them ground back. And one of the other things I see is where the base is sunk. Mm-hmm. So the edges are actually high in effect.
So it's concaved.
And it's concaved in,
Yeah. And I think, and it goes back to when you stored the skis, did you give them a visual check? Did you wind your bindings down? Because again, a lot of people wind them down, but then when they get to day one, and this actually happened to one of the guys from Zell at the Aufnahme for the Stadtlicht, funny enough. He brought out his race skis. He'd waxed them, he'd edged them, everything. He put them on his feet. He went to do a warm-up run, pinged out and broke his collarbone. Because if you have wound your bindings down...
So we're talking here, Andy, for the lay person, what you're talking about.
So the bindings have got a din setting, which holds your boot into the ski.
Like a spring.
Yeah, a spring-loaded mechanism that will release upon a certain amount of pressure and a certain angle of fall, etc., etc. and they are typically set in the shop when you buy your skis. You should ideally wind them down for the summer.
Yeah, because they're under load basically constantly. So you need to release that load. A bit like what I do with my bikes in the winter. I let the air out the tires because I don't just want this air sitting in the tires throughout the whole winter. You release the pressure.
Yeah. So if you have wound them down, which is good for you if you have you reset them? And have you reset them to the right
to the
level?
New value you need, because that value might change. You might be 10 kilo heavier.
Exactly. Yeah.
You might be a worse skier.
You're definitely going to be at least a year older or nearly a year older. And as you get older, your setting does decrease. Once you hit 50, it comes down significantly. So again, there's lots of factors. So if you have wound them down, good on you, but make sure you get them reset. So that's kind of bindings. The other things with bindings is there enough grease in there, lubricant, and are they working? And if a ski's a few years old, then I would recommend that you actually get your bindings checked, because there are machines to check that the bindings are still working. They say a binding will actually last for many, many years if it's looked after. But again, if I'm leaving my skis in the roof box for the whole of the summer, how looked after would you say the bindings are? Probably not very.
Yeah, so we're talking skis there. I mean, I know a lot of people don't own a pair of skis that might listen to this and think, well, it's obviously not relevant to me, and that's true. What you may be considering in your side, is this the time to buy, or still the time to rent? We did tackle this in a podcast, I think, a couple of months back. But in general, both Andy and I are of the opinion that unless you're going to ski a number of weeks in the year, it's not just a 6-day holiday, but you come back and back and back 3 or 4 times, then look, just rent, because most places have really top quality equipment now. Pay a little extra if you have to go to that better shop, and have better choice, if you like. That's what I'm sort of saying to you, because that premium will make a difference, and we'll do at some point, when I do the SI analysis series and things, which will start up again now the ski season's starting, I'll actually break down some skis from a video point of view. It's not really a podcast thing because you can't see what I'm doing. So that's skis. Boots, I mean, they're the same, aren't they? What about boots?
Yeah. So where have your boots been stored once you take them out? I'm dreadful, because I once left a pair of boots in the same cupboard as a condenser tumble dryer.
A bit feucht with it, a bit damp.
Well, it wasn't so much that. I got them out. It's when I lived in Reading. I got them out. I went to Bracknell to go skiing 2 weeks before my ski holiday, and my foot came off the ski, but half of the boot was still in the binding. And this boot had sat in the box, and the temperature increased, decreased, increased, decreased, and it just knackered the plastic.
Dilapidated, yeah.
And the plastic it just shattered basically. Now, fair play to Technica at the time. They gave me new shells, but I had to keep my inners. I didn't tell them where I'd stored them. I just said, I've just got them out the box. I've gone skiing 2 weeks before my holiday, and my boots have disintegrated. Where did you store them? Did you store them in a nice, not too hot, not too cold area? Did you dry them out beforehand?
Did you take the liners in, and or did you leave them in?
Were they fastened up?
Yeah.
And now what you want to be doing once you get them out, obviously you want to see if they still fit, because maybe your foot's changed. And when I say fit, I don't mean do you need to go and buy a new pair of boots, but do they need to be refitted because your foot does change over time? But also look at the sole of the boot. Are the toe and the heel, are they worn? Do they need to be replaced? A lot of boots have replaceable rubber toe and heel pieces. So do they need to be replaced?
If you walk a lot in the boot, it can grind it down really fast. That's what you're talking about there.
Exactly. And
hence the cat tracks and crap that just drop off your feet.
Yeah, there's rubbery things you can buy, all these add-ons.
They keep falling off your feet. You keep buying them, they fall off your feet and you lose them. But look, with the boot, Andy, in fairness, we did say we'll do a specific thing about boot fit and boots, where I will talk again on video, because it's complicated when I start talking about the biomechanics and anatomy that requires. But we will tackle boot fit a little bit on the next podcast, I think, as well, where we'll do it on a podcast a little bit to discuss some of our pet peeves and things like that about boot fit. So that's the boots. Obviously, people might have poles and stuff like that. They may forget that sort of stuff. their own ski jackets and helmets and all that sort of stuff. You need to dig all those things out and look at them. Really, are they waterproofed? Are they ready to go? Because hey, they're expensive. I see people do it all the time. They buy this crazy equipment for winter, and they spend €1,000 on a nice uniform. A nice pair of pants and top, and then they get another one next season, and it's like, hang on, he only used it like 7 days or something. Like, surely that one's perfect. If you have, treated the Gore-Tex or the waterproof fabric, if you have, kept it in a nice place, then hey, it should be fine. You don't need to be buying kit every single year to look like you've got a new stuff. Well, I don't think so anyway. But
it's one thing, and quite often people ask about base layers. Oh, what's the best base layer? What's the best base layer? I've not replaced base layers in 10 years.
Well, in fairness, yes, we do tend to use the same base layer for probably 2 decades. But if you do get a wool, merino wool or something of that sort of nature, quality, you spend a little bit of a premium on the equipment, I do notice the difference. I ski obviously in South America, and it's bitter cold in South America with the winds coming from the Antarctica. So it can get freezing. When I'm in Iceland, in Greenland, freezing cold. And the issue is if you have a nice fitted thermal top, especially one of these ones that almost clean themselves, so you don't have to, you can just like hang it out, and you're not washing it every single time you use it, then it's worth its weight. And in fairness, I was in Iceland there for 3 weeks, and I got away with 2 thermal tops. I didn't have to take 7. I think people do that. They come on a ski holiday, they've got 6 thermal tops. You don't need that, especially thermal pants. So better to buy less, but spend a little more on that and get a top quality one. And I'm not going to sell you the product I'm sponsored by, but their name is...
Well, going back to the ones that self-clean, and I didn't believe this, and mine are all Canterbury, and that was basically, I had a mate who worked for Canterbury, so I got a bit of a deal at the time, 10 years ago, and I was like, surely they can't. They were antibacterial, they said.
Yeah.
And I started, and I literally did sniff them every day and could not believe that they didn't smell. They're fantastic. But this also goes back to what you just said then about base layers is socks. People see 35, 45, 55 for a pair of socks. You only need 2 pairs of socks.
If you're buying that quality sock, absolutely.
Buy one. And then if it needs washing, you can wash it in the sink in your accommodation.
3 days later, it's ready.
Yeah, so 2 or 3 pair for the week. You don't need a pair of socks for every single day.
No, absolutely not. What you do need is to spend money on things that are near your skin. I think that's the way to look at that. And, so your thermals, yes, and you're making sure that, you do have a nice buff or something like that. I think that's worth its weight in gold. And then on top of that, obviously make sure you've got your helmet, you check your helmet out. They do dilapidate and they do fail if they're left in bad places. So, and then your goggles, again, one of the biggest peeves, is you scratch your lens. It's like a pain, and half the time it's not worth replacing the lens, because when you do, you could have bought a new pair of goggles nowadays. It's just as cheap, especially if you look at like an Oakley lens. It's ridiculous. You can buy a whole Oakley frame and everything. It's so try and avoid scratching the lenses if you can. But if you've already done that, then in fairness, I always look at people who are going around with really crappy goggles, like they're scratched or they're misting up all the time, and they spoil their 6-day holiday because they won't spend €100 on a pair of goggles. And I think you've just spoiled like a $2,000 holiday for the sake of like having no vision on the slopes. So I would always say, again, a decent pair of goggles, but unfortunately if you've got kids and stuff like that, then they're probably going to destroy that pair of goggles as well. And as I've said before in a podcast, you've heard me say, I never give my goggles to a guest or a client. Never. They can suffer.
The other thing with goggles, which is important, and again, this goes down to where did you store them? Because a lot of people put things in the loft for the summer, but a loft in the summer gets extremely hot. Yeah. And what you quite often find is the foam that sits on your face on the goggle, that is going to have removed itself from the goggle frame. And that's because the glue gets so warm. And it just becomes soft again. And you'll basically take your goggles out at the first day. You go to put them on, you'll be like, oh, what's that about?
Falling apart.
Again, this goes back to more storing it after the season rather than getting it out. But when you get them out, check your lenses, check the foam, see how it is.
Yeah. There's a lot of preparation and pre-cost in a ski season that can be avoided as well. And that's what we're trying to say here is, I think each people, like, you finish a ski holiday, and as Andy's done, you just, I have had enough of this, chuck it to one side, and I'll deal with that next week. And it never gets dealt with. Obviously, it goes from week to week.
Do you know where my 2 helmets have been for the most of the
Probably
summer?
in the ski box as well.
Rolling around on the back seat of the car.
Rolling around the back seat, right? But that's because you're a busy man, Andy.
I am.
That's
I
what it
went
is.
straight from skiing into summer, didn't I? So
Yeah, So, but yes, if you are aware of costs and you want to, make sure your budget's held, then just be aware that what we're saying is basically look after the kit. And I think for some people it's not easy because you might not know how to look after a pair of skis, and the easiest way, obviously, I would say to you is, and I always said to my guests, when you've finished on the 6th day, take them in and tell the ski shop you are finished for the season. Can they finish the ski off for you? And they will do that. They'll put a layer of wax on, they'll release everything, they'll sort it all out for you and give the ski back. And now it's ready to be packed away. And then when you go back on the first day, give it back to the shop and go, right, I'm ready for my first day back. Can you check everything to make sure it's ready to go? And don't forget to mention, as Andy said, the binding, because one shop might have released it and another shop might not know that. So it's very important you mention, can you make sure my bindings are reset? And you can check yourself, because if you look at that DIN number that Andy's talking about and you see it at like 1 or 2 or whatever, the shop's clearly cranked it back. It should be around 2/3 of its value. So if you've got a 10 binding, it might be set at 6 or 7. If you've got a 12 or 14, then think 2/3 of that is probably where it should be set. But as Andy said, that is only respectful of somebody's age, their height, their weight, their ability, and that binding number will be flexible to that.
And also, if you're in the UK or not in a resort, let's say, don't leave it till the week before your holiday to take your skis in to get serviced. Get them in now. Yeah. If not, get them. You should have got them in weeks ago, because the shops in the UK are going to get busier and busier and busier on the run up to the first week being Christmas week, let's say. So get your skis out now and get them down the shop to get serviced. Yeah.
If you can't, don't worry. The shops in the resort tend to turn them around in 20-30 minutes.
They can do them overnight, and quite often it is a better quality service than that you would get at home, which is a controversial thing to say, but in my experience.
But in fairness, if I look at that new machine Brundle's just put in, you're talking millions compared with, somebody's got like a €100,000 machine.
What does it do? Because it's the length of a football pitch.
Well, exactly. So, and look, I don't have my skis machine service because I have a guy who races.
You like a nice hand service.
Yes, I get a proper hand job. Shh, don't tell Julian. But nowadays machine servicing is getting better, and actually we picked up on this, and I think we'll pick it up in the next one with the boot thing about rental. We'll mention it there. Let's cut this one so we don't hold your attention too long, and we'll finish off and talk to you about number 2, preparation of the ski season.
Bye for now.